Howdy, folks, and welcome to Moose Podcast 251. Well, that week went really fast. Want to thank all of you who came to Bedford's for the aviation seminar and all the rest of you around the planet who tuned in online. It was a great day. Thanks ever so much. Remember that you can, even though you weren't part of the original broadcast, you could very easily, once we have the link up, buy the seminar and listen to it at your leisure for up to 6 months. But thank you all for showing up. It was a great experience. I'm exhausted, but it was great. I want to thank my good friends and partners in the aviation seminar, Bedford Camera, bedfords.com. They were just a super host, had a lot of fun, and they keep sponsoring the Moose Podcast. More importantly, they make it easier, for better or worse, for us to buy our camera gear. Even at the store, I couldn't help myself. I had to pick up some stuff. I didn't have to save that discount, MOOSC. They knew it was me, but I still saved some real money. No shipping, sales tax. It's killer. Great folks, great inventory, great advice. Bedfords.com. Let's get right to this week's podcast, where I'm going to go through some of your questions. I have 4 I hope to get through here. I'm going to start with John's question. I'm new to photography. I have been searching the web. How do you file your images? I can't find mine from yesterday. Help! Well, John, that is a great question. It is a very common question. The one answer that I tend to always give folks is you want to file your images with your logic. There's a lot of systems out there, even mine's on the website, but it works for me because it fits my logic, the way I think of things, the way I try to find things. Though there are times when I put something away and I say, this is a good place, I'll always find it here. And of course, within a day, I've not only lost it, I can't find it again because it wasn't working. That's probably what you're experiencing with your images, John. So you want to keep it simple, stupid. First thing I'm going to suggest. For myself, I have very simple folders, landscapes, locations as I call them. And those locations are the name, St. Louis, Yellowstone National Park. And under that, I will file the images. For birds, a little more complicated because I break them down into their families, like raptors and shorebirds, and then individual files for the actual species. For aviation, probably the most complicated because I will file the aircraft under the ICAO, and that's the letter indicator for the airport. So whatever airport I was photographing at or nearby, that's the folder I'll put all the images in. And then the aircraft, this is the only time I do it, I'll keyword the aircraft. So if it's a B-17, all the B-17s will have that tag. Or if it's a Cessna 180, they'll have that tag. That way I can easily search, and then when I finish the files, that keyword stays there. It just helps me file the finished images as well. And that brings up a good point. I'm talking about just filing the raw files at this point. And then mammals, there's not that many mammals in North America or on the planet, so they're just, one folder called mammals, and they're put in their alphabetical order. The computer does that by their common name, not Latin name. Now, I'm using Photo Mechanic, and I'm using Photo Mechanic Plus, which has the ability to search all your catalogs as well as the actual files. Now, Photo Mechanic Plus is an incredibly powerful, skinny program. What I mean is, there's not a whole lot back into it. It just does its job. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space on your hard drive. It just does an incredibly fast job of bringing all your images in, letting you sort through them, and then letting you file them. And then once you got them filed, find what you need in a heartbeat. And that's really as important as anything else. And that damn program, Digital Asset Management, damn program, is just as important as the way in which you file. Now, John, you didn't say what your particular genre was, but let's say you're doing portraits. I would personally, on my pilot portrait project that I did, I created a folder called Pilot Portraits. Then underneath that was the name of a folder for each person. So if the pilot was John Doe, there was a folder called John Doe. And then I put all those photographs in there. Now, when it comes to actually numbering them, because each file, especially for copyright, needs to have its own unique alphanumeric number that goes along with your name. That just makes the filing a lot easier. I simply start with the very first image in the folder is the oldest. The newest or the latest would be the very last. And with Photo Mechanic, it's very simple to do. You just click on Capture Time and it will sort it. Then you do a Command or Control A, select them all, Control or Command M, and then rename them. So that's the basics for filing. Now, is there any information in there, John, that might help you? Yes. Two things. Use your own logic. File the way your images that you would file your bills or your contracts or your instruction books. And then keep it simple, stupid. Don't make it complicated. Keep it very easy. I know a lot of people who file by date, which right now works great. In 10 years, I don't know about anybody else, but remembering myself 10 years ago where I shot this thing and what date, that doesn't work for me. So do what works for you and keep it simple, John, and you'll find that system. Remember, though, the key here is you're just starting out. Now is the time to start filing. When you've been doing it for a few years, the filing gets to be a real dredge. All right. I'm going to go on to a question for Judy, which is really common. We've talked about it a few times here on the podcast. I want to cover it one more time. Judy asks, real simple, I have just the kit lens. I want to get into landscape photography. What's the best lens for landscape photography you can recommend? Well, interesting question. So I went to my favorite program, Bridge. I went to my locations folder, and then I simply looked at and had it filter through and show me, and you look under focal length of lenses, it'll show you how many images were taken with this, that, or the other lens. So for myself, Judy, and this is just for myself, the lens that I use for the vast majority of the landscape photographs that are in my finished folder, so these are ones, they're not the raw files, these are PSDs, these are the ones that I liked from what I shot, I finished them and I kept them in that, what I call gallery folder. The number one lens for myself, I should have a sound effect like a drum roll, but really not that important, is the 70-200. That's the lens of all the shots in my landscape photos, for using that term. That's the lens that's been used, number one. Number two, the 24-70. Number three, 14-24. Or what most people call that, the trinity of lenses. And that's a really great set. Now, Judy, your question is, best lens for landscapes. I don't think there is such one. That's the problem. Trying to answer that, honestly, there is no answer. Because how you experience a landscape is going to be totally different from everybody else. And we want to see that in your photographs. More importantly, we want to feel that. I want you, Judy, to take that photograph, and then when I look at it, I go, wow, I got to be there. And whatever you did to make that happen, that at that point in time was the best lens for that landscape. Now, how do you get to the point where you just walk up somewhere and boom, you have it? Yeah, I don't have that answer either. That's why I have bought lenses and sold lenses over the decades. That's part of the process as well. Now, Judy, the one thing I can recommend is to find a range, a focal length range that you want to work in. Find a zoom that encompasses that range, and then rent that lens for a while. These little lenses like that, they don't cost that much to rent for a couple weeks. And then shoot with it. And then for yourself, go into Bridge, look at that filter, and see what focal length. And if you're a Nikon shooter, you didn't say what brand you shot. You could also go into NX Studio. It'll tell you the focal length you use the most often. That is a way to tell yourself from your own photography an answer to your question. All right. Carol's got a great question. Kind of hard to answer. Her question is, I've been shooting for a while. I hear I should learn how to print. Her question is real simple. How do I start printing? Well, it's such a simple question, and anybody who's printed knows that's not really a simple answer to go by. I thought about it for a bit, and the first thing I'd recommend to you, Carol, is to find a night course at a local college, and I'm assuming coming out of the pandemic, those are around, and take a basic printing course. You're going to take a basic printing course not so much to find the answer, but to find some answers to get you started. Now, if you want to just go at it alone, which is how I did it and I started, you need to find a basic printer. And I'm going to suggest buying a smaller printer with a smaller footprint that uses smaller size paper. Just take the big paper, because you want to first get the feel of just the mechanics, how you set everything up, how you then start working with software, then how you start looking at your images to learn from your images what you want to print, and then how you take from your printing and learn how to improve your photography. And then you kind of spin that up. And I'm saying that because printers change not as often as lenses and camera bodies, it seems like, but there's always new printers coming around the corner. And so don't go buy the big, baddest, most expensive one to start with. And I hate to kind of say this, but you kind of want to find the one that's easier to throw away when you get done. Then when you're ready to move up, it's just you move up to the right printer and it's a done deal. So to answer your question, how do I start printing? I'm going to say find the smallest, least expensive printer that does basically printing and get you started inexpensively, and then move forward. If you can't take that class, that's the best way to, start going. And I wish I had more to tell you, but teaching printing by just a podcast to me is really not doing a service for you because it's such a visual thing. But I want to encourage you to print and then share those prints. It's a great, great thing, Carol. Last question I have here is from Jeff. And it's kind of a hot button topic, but I'm going to throw it out there in a brief way. Jeff gets around and basically he says he wants to know, is it better to crop in post or in camera? Now, he didn't specify, oh, brother, not enough coffee yet, specify what he means by cropping in camera. I'm assuming, though, he's talking about taking the picture right the first time and doing all the cropping you want to do in the viewfinder. So when you take the picture, the cropping's done, compared to cropping in post. So technically, if we're going to start with that level, in this day and age, I don't think it makes a difference technically. If you want the ultimate quality and you're in the business of selling large prints, big files to big buck clients, it's best to do it in camera, period. That's how you convince your clients photographically that you know your stuff. Now, if you're just doing it for yourself, for the web, I don't think it makes any difference if you do it one way or the other technically. Now, when it comes to you as a photographer and you growing as a photographer, there I have a very definite opinion, okay? And that is, don't crop and post. Don't give yourself that out. Think about any chore you might do around the house. If you're able to put that chore off, do you put that chore off and then does it slowly not get done? And maybe it just, that's because that's for me, that's human nature. And not that cropping and post is a chore, but when we give ourselves any wiggle room, be it intentional or not, the way we are as humans and the way life can get in the way of life sometimes, we tend not to push ourselves if we find this avenue. I have a friend that has a saying that I think of quite often. Nothing is more permanent than a temporary solution. And that's true, because if it's there, why would we then push ourselves to reinvent and make it a better there, right? So when it comes to cropping, I haven't cropped, I just don't crop and post. I do it in the camera. I push myself. You gotta understand, for me personally, it's just a photograph. Yeah, I hate missing a photograph. I mean, I mumble and moan and groan, but if I don't miss it, I won't push myself to be better. And that's really, to me, the bigger part of the cropping question. You want to crop and post, it's your photograph, it's your story. It's what you want to share. And if cropping makes it happen, do it. But if you want to be in photography for a long run, you want to keep improving your photography day in and day out, one of the best ways is not buying new bodies, new lenses. It's to push yourself to put the elements in the viewfinder and arrange them to tell your story the best you can when you go click and be done. Hi, folks. You have a great week. Thanks for dropping by. And remember to make every click your story.